Okay guys, these are the demand notes that I promised you. I'm going to try to upload this video onto Google Classroom since I have still not had any luck with recording any Zoom or Google Meets. And so I figured that those of you that missed the meeting or also those of you that want to review the notes have the ability to do so. So we're starting with the basic definition of demand. Demand is the ability and the willingness to buy. Essentially, the demand side is the consumer side. In economics, there is a market for every single consumer good. Think about, we live in a market economy and there's two sides to that market. There's the supply side and then there's the demand side. The demand side is the consumer and what they are willing to buy. The supply side is the producer and what they're willing to produce, or what they are able and willing to produce at that price. So in order for us to understand demand, I want for you to consider yourself as a consumer and how you would essentially change your behavior as far as when there is a change in price, or when there is a non-price determinant like your income that changes, and how that affects how much that you're able and willing to buy. Okay, so in order for us to allocate resources for something to belong to us in our economy, you have to be able, number one, to pay for that item. So if you don't have the money, then that good is not allocated to you. If you can't afford that item, then that good is not allocated to you in our market. You also have to be willing to pay the price that's prevailing in the market. When those two things are evident, then you are in demand of that essentially of that good. Okay, there are two ways to illustrate demand. The very first way is called a demand schedule. And a demand schedule is just a listing of the quantity. Quantity means how much. The quantity demanded is what you're able and willing to buy at a price, at a single price. So it is, again, just a listing. Think of it as a T-chart, one that you've seen in economics before. I mean, not in economics, in algebra before. On one side you have the price that's prevailing in the market. Let's say that this is the demand schedule for socks, because I said we were going to use socks, or we did use socks earlier as our example. And then the quantity demanded on the left. Usually I abbreviate this just QD. Okay, so typically you'll see about 4 or 5 points on this listing or on this demand schedule. So let's say, for example, we had kind of determined that the highest price that we would pay for a pair of socks on our meeting was $12. So at $12, this just shows that the quantity that we demand at that price is 1. I also said that there was something that was called the law of demand that you guys are going to have to know, and that will help you to understand all of this information if you understand that. The law of demand states that when price goes up, or that when prices are high, that the quantity that we demand goes down. When things are expensive, we don't buy as much. That's basically what that's saying. And again, it's common sense of a consumer. And you guys can relate because you have been consumers for a few years now. Okay, when price goes down, it talks about it also in the law of demand that when price goes down, the quantity that you demand is going to go up. When things are cheaper, we tend to buy more. This inverse relationship between these two variables, again, you can kind of connect your algebraic knowledge that when you have an inverse relationship between two variables, that you have a downward sloping line on the curve. And I'll talk about how that is illustrated on the second part of the second way to illustrate demand. So with this with this idea in mind, then if the price of socks were more expensive, let's say $20, well, I'm not going to be willing, or maybe I'm not able to buy any pairs of socks at that price. If the prices were a little bit lower, let's say at 50% off, well then maybe I'm more inclined to buy, oh well, if socks are $6 each, you know what, I'm going to buy 3 pairs. and at, let's say, for example, $3, then I'm going to buy even more than that, so I'm going to buy 5 pairs. That's the quantity that I demand at that price. So the very first way to illustrate demand is by using this T-chart, where again you have price on one side, you have quantity demanded on the other, and it just basically shows the amount that you are buying at that single price. And that's basically it. The amount that you buy is the quantity, how much that you're demanding, that you're willing and able to buy. Okay? All right, so the second way that we illustrate demand is essentially by plotting these points on a curve. So the second way that we illustrate demand is called a demand curve. And we are essentially going to plot out the points from this T-chart onto a graph. However, there is a main difference between algebra and economics. In algebra, on this side is usually the x-axis and this side is the y-axis. In macroeconomics, for every graph that you see, there's going to be some sort of price on the y. Price is always listed on the y-axis, and quantity demanded, which I'm just going to abbreviate as QD, is always listed on the x-axis. So do not let that confuse you when you are plotting your points from a demand schedule. So I'm just going to very generically put my prices down here, 3, 6, 12, 20. And then I'm going to put my quantity, 1, 3, well, I'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to plot out my points. So again, the points on the curve come from this demand schedule up here on top. So at $20, I'm not demanding any socks. And again, you should always get into the habit of labeling the demand curve for socks. This is the market for socks, and it shows what is demanded at each and every price in the market for socks. And then you have at $12, you have that we are demanding 1 pair of socks. At $6, we are demanding 3 pairs of socks. And at $3, we are demanding 5 pairs of socks. So this is your demand curve right here, and we'll label this D so that we can illustrate that this is the demand curve, and it is a downward sloping line for 3 reasons. The first reason is because of the law of demand, and the law of demand that where I had said that the variables, the two variables of price and quantity have an inverse relationship, and it causes for this to be a downward sloping line. Also, it is downward sloping because of diminishing marginal utility, because buying the second and third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh pair of socks, or even, let's say, gallons of milk, for example, eventually, no matter how low the price is, you're going to stop buying. And also because of the income effect, which kind of is closely related to the law of demand, that when prices are high, we feel poorer, so we don't buy as much. When prices are low, we feel richer, so then we buy more. All of the reasons for this curve being downward sloping is on the PowerPoint that is on Google Classroom that I posted along with the vocabulary, which is not for a grade, but it's what you should be reviewing for every little section, and what you should know. So that's kind of just like a guide for you. I'm not going to be collecting that as a grade. Okay, so this demand curve again is downward sloping. The reasons for on the Google Classroom, on the PowerPoint that I had posted. And that's basically that. Remember, the one thing that you should remember from this little card is that there are 2 ways to illustrate demand. The 2 ways is, number 1, this demand schedule, number 2, this demand curve. And that when you are plotting out this demand schedule onto a demand curve, know that price is always on the Y, quantity is always on the X. In the future, whenever we're covering other graphs like the loanable funds graph and the money market and the aggregate supply and demand curve, hopefully we'll get to that, then there's always some sort of price on the y-axis, some sort of quantity on the x, and that's just how it works with economics. Don't ask me why they changed it around like they did, but that's just how it is. Okay, so the second thing that I want to cover is a change in demand. So a change in demand is, there are 2 types of changes in demand. So these are changes, I'm just going to label this changes in demand, and there are 2 types. So there is a change in quantity demanded to changes in demand. The very first one is a change in quantity demanded, okay? This is going to be illustrated by a movement along the line because of a change in price. Change in price. The only thing that's changing when you have a change in QD is price. That is what is changing. That is the determinant that is causing the change on the curve along the line itself. So I'm just going to kind of reiterate the little graph for socks. Again, we have to label our market for socks. Here's price. And we said that at, let's say for example, that at $12, and I'm just going to start here, that at $12, wait, we had 20, 12, 6, and 3. And then we also had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so at $12, let's say for example, we are buying or we are demanding one. We'll just say that this is our downward sloping curve. We are demanding one pair of socks. So we're going to call this point A. Let's say, for example, then first that if price changes, again, this is what causes a change in quantity demanded, a movement along the line. So let's say, for example, that price goes down from $12 to $6 for these socks, right? Price has gone down. So now then at $6, we are demanding, and this is, I'm just gonna, I drew my line after the fact. So we're gonna call this point B. I know that that's kind of crooked, but whatever, you get it. At $6, we are demanding 3 pairs of socks. Now then, we've moved from, sorry, excuse me, at $12, demanding only 1 pair of socks, we've moved to demanding 3 pairs of socks. So the quantity that we've demanded has increased, and it is illustrated by a movement along the line. We were first at A, at point A, when the pairs of socks were $12 each, then moving down to point B when the price dropped down to $6. So a movement down the line, this is an increase in QD. And this is because the only thing that has changed is right here, price has changed. And so then we have increased the quantity that we've demanded. In order to illustrate a decrease in demand, let's say, for example, a decrease in quantity demanded, I should say, then we are going to have, again, this downward sloping line. And we're going to say that the price of socks was $6. And at $6, now we're going to call this point A. We are buying 3 pairs of socks. And now in this case then, the price of socks has increased to $12. So now at $12, we are only, the quantity that we demand at that price will only be 1 pair of socks. So we've moved from point A to point B along the line. Price has gone up from $6 to $12. And the quantity that we've demanded has gone down from 3 pairs to 1 pair because this price has gone up. So we've moved up the line. This is, again, a movement along the line only because price has changed. And so this is a decrease in quantity demanded, okay? The only reason the only way that you have a change in quantity demanded is if there is a change in price. If you know the definition of this, then you'll always know when it's a change in quantity demanded versus a change in demand. And I can show, and I'm going to show you guys that next. Okay, so then a change, the second way to illustrate a change in demand is by illustrating a change we call it a change in demand, I'm sorry. So the second way is, number 2, second way to show a change is that this is a change in the actual demand curve, okay? So this is a shift of the entire curve because of some non-price determinant. that means determinant, I hope I spelled that right, that price is going to stay the same, but at the same time, it's not price that's changing, it's something else that's changing. And I told you guys to remember Piper, which I'm going to put is what's changing, which I will go over in just a minute. I had sent you guys this paper with the answers already on there that shows the non-price determinants that affect demand. We're going to go over that next. And those are the, that's what I mean when I say to remember Piper. It's preference, your income, population, your expectation, and then related goods. So it's not what price that's changing. Price has stayed the same. It's something else that's changing that causes for this shift, for this curve to completely shift to the right or to the left. So again, you have quantity demanded, you have price, you have a downward sloping curve. That's demand. If there is an increase in demand, it's going to, let's say for example, again, at $12, we were demanding 1 pair of socks. And so something has changed. Let's say, for example, that our income has gone up. And so if we are earning more money, we're able to afford, and we might be more willing to pay to pay that price, or to demand more quantity at that price now that we're earning more money. So let's say, for example, that at $12 now I'm able and I'm also willing to buy more socks at that price. Maybe I'll buy 3 pairs at $12. So again, the price has not changed. What is changing is the amount that I'm buying at that price, at each and every price. So at $6, again, at $6 before, that is when I was purchasing 3 pairs of socks. And so at $6, then maybe I'm going to be willing to buy 5 pairs of socks now. And so if I plot these new points and I kind of connect that, my new curve is going to have seemingly shifted to the right. If you want more explanation on this, I can kind of show you in regards to the schedule. Let's say, for example, that we have our first initial curve at $12. I'm purchasing, or the quantity that I demand is 1 pair of socks. Oh, sorry, I forgot to label this for socks. Label everything, get into the habit of. And so then at $6, I'm buying 3 pairs of socks. Well, then my income goes up, and now I'm balling, and so then I can buy more. And so this is my new curve. You should always show a progression. If this first initial curve is D, you should label the next one D1, or you can do D1 and D2. Or you can also show a progression by using an arrow, but you have to show, especially on the exam, you have to show that there's a change from one point to the next. So again, this is now then my income has gone up, my income has increased, and so at $12 now I'm going to purchase 3 pairs of socks, and at $6 I'm going to purchase 5 pairs of socks. And if I plot out these new points, then this is my new curve, and it seemingly has shifted to the right. Let's say, for example, then that my, and I know I color-coded these opposite, I hope that doesn't confuse people. Let's say, for example, I'm going to have a QD2. This is where my income has gone down, that not at $12, I'm not even going to be able to afford 1 pair of socks. I'm not going to afford any at all. And then at $6, I'm going to afford not even 3. I'm going to afford only 1 pair of socks. So if I plot out this new curve, then at $12, I'm not buying any. At $6, I might buy 1. And this is my new curve here. I'll label this D2. And it has seemingly shifted to the left. This is a decrease in demand. So when demand decreases, it shifts to the left. When demand increases, it shifts to the right. And so I hope that that helps you to understand why these are seemingly shifting to the right or to the left. Is because price is staying the same, but I'm either buying less or I'm buying more at that same price, at each and every price, every point along the line. And so essentially, you're just plotting like you're creating a new demand schedule each and every time that you're that your preference changes, or your income changes, or the population changes, or your expectations, or the related goods, and I'll go over that in just a minute, but that there's a determinant that causes for you to buy more, for your ability and your willingness to buy more or less at each and every price. So again, just to review a little bit, what I just went over, there are two ways that you show a change in demand. The first way is a movement along the line because of a change in price. What's changing here is price, and so then there's just a movement along the line. An increase in quantity demanded is down the line, a decrease in quantity demanded is up the line. Then there's the second way to show a change in demand, that is when the entire curve shifts to the right. That's an increase in demand. Price is staying the same. Price is the same. Absolutely most important thing to remember, the difference between each is that price in this case stays the same, but it's something else that's changing. So let's go over these non-price determinants that change demand. What causes for the demand curve to shift to the right or to the left? These are called non-price determinants because the price of the good is not changing, but it's something else that's changing. And so I have posted this paper on Google Classroom, and I've posted this paper onto Google Classroom, and I did put the answers on there, but I kind of want to just go over it again just so that I can kind of like explain it as you go through, and then you'll understand if you have any questions. So preference is basically like your taste. Also your taste. And there's a lot of things that affect preference and taste, like a news report, or like a celebrity who all of a sudden is using this dress. Meghan Markle, which is Prince Harry's wife, I believe, I don't know. She'll wear like a seemingly inexpensive dress, and then all of a sudden it's sold out online because people can afford that type of dress. And so because she is so popular, then their preference has changed to increase their demand of that dress. So things like news reports and celebrity, just like influence, can cause for your preference or your taste to change. Also, seasonal items have to do with your preference. And so if you like it, if it's popular, if it's trendy, well then your demand will go up and it'll shift to the right. Again, I said like, for example, news reports will affect the preference of a good or service. And so if all of a sudden, if the CDC would announce like right now that vitamin C, like orange juice, would help you to fight, the coronavirus, then there would be an increase in the demand for orange juice. Okay. So if you don't like it, on the other end, if you don't like it, if it's last season, if it's old school, if it's just, if it's out of style, then people are not going to demand it. Demand will go down and it'll shift to the left. The entire curve again will shift to the left. Just to give you guys a little reminder, if I can find it here. This is what I'm talking about when an increase in demand would shift it to the right, a decrease in demand would shift it to the left. Okay, so for your income, this is true for normal goods. Normal goods are things that we buy on a regular basis. And when you earn more money, any money that we use for the demand of goods and services is called disposable income. Disposable income is the amount of money that you have after you have paid your taxes. So taxes does affect the amount of disposable income that you have available to you. Let's say, for example, that you're all of a sudden earning more money, or that they've cut our taxes, and I'm going to add that on here, that they've cut taxes. We don't have to pay as much taxes, so we have more money. Demand then will go up and it'll shift to the right. When people have more money, you always assume that they're going to buy more goods and services. If we earn less money, or if they increase taxes, then we don't have as much money to spend, so demand will go down and it will shift to the left. This is true for normal goods. However, there are, and I'm going to kind of go down here and write this down here, there are something that is called an inferior good. Inferior goods are things that we buy on a budget. It's goods that we buy on a budget. So for example, some things that have been used before, like thrift store clothing or ramen noodles, bologna, things like that, those are examples of inferior goods. And again, it might be that your preference is that you prefer ramen noodle soups to Progresso soups, or you prefer thrift store clothing, or thrifting is actually like a new trend right now. So maybe you prefer to buy clothes at a thrift store. However, for the most part, the majority of this, preference aside, whenever it is that your income goes up, if your income goes up, for example, the demand, like for normal goods, would increase. If we are making more money, we're going to buy more money. But instead, for inferior goods, instead of going out and buy bologna, maybe I'm going to stop buying bologna and go out and buy, you know, deli meats, right? Like deli ham. And so, or for example, if my income goes up, instead of going out to buy more thrift store clothing, I'm going to stop buying thrift store clothing and I'm going to go out and buy, you know, new clothes. So if your demand goes up and only for inferior goods, then if your income goes up, on only for inferior goods, the demand for inferior goods is going to go down and shift to the left. And then if your income goes down, right now we are at the very, probably at the start of a recession, seeing as how there are so many people out of work and people's incomes are definitely going to go down. So they're not going to go out and buy ribeye steaks. They're probably going to go out and buy, you know, cheaper goods like bologna, ramen noodles, things that they can afford. So when our income goes down and for inferior goods, then the demand for those goods are going to go up and it's going to shift to the right. So I hope that helps you to understand that. Okay, going back to the second P in Piper, again, you should remember Piper, P-I-P-I-P-E-R. That is when I tell you to remember the non-price determinants, or Piper, that the factors that affect demand, then that's what I'm talking about when I say that. So population, when there's more people in the market, essentially, if there's more people right now, there's a lot more people that are entering into the market for masks and gloves. Before it was more like for healthcare professionals, people who had a compromised immune system. And now that everyone is freaking out about the coronavirus, then everyone is becoming a new customer in the market for masks and gloves. This is also true for when there's like an influx of immigrants that either come into the country or leave the country. And if you think of a market, if you just have a sheer just increase in consumers or a decrease in consumers, then your demand, the willingness, the ability to buy stuff is going to go up or down accordingly. So if you have more people in the market, demand will then go up and it'll shift to the right. If you have less people in the market, then demand will go down and it'll shift to the left. Expectations have to do with things that have not yet occurred, but consumers are expecting for them to happen in the future. So if you expect prices to go up, if I tell you tomorrow the price of gas is going to be $5 a gallon, what do you think people are going to go out and do right now? They're going to go out and they're going to fill up their cars, probably cause a gas shortage like they did a few years ago. So if you expect prices to go up in the future, you're going to go out and buy right now. So the demand is going to go up and it's going to shift to the right. Also, if you expect a shortage right now, people in China had essentially started to stockpile toilet paper because they thought that people who worked in the manufacturing of toilet paper were going to be out of a job because of the coronavirus, and then there would be a shortage of toilet paper. Because people were seeing that online, then people started to freak out thinking there was a shortage here in the United States, and people are expecting there to be a shortage of toilet paper. So if you have shopped online, or if you've tried going to Walmart or H-E-B to buy toilet paper, your family's probably had a little bit of trouble doing so because of that expectation of a shortage. I also use the example of like when hurricanes are coming and everybody starts freaking out, like buying bottled waters and batteries and plywood to cover their windows. When they're expecting for there to be a shortage of something, people are going to rush out to go and buy it. And so the demand will go up and it'll shift to the right. If you expect that prices go down accordingly, then, excuse me, if you expect that prices are going to go down in the future, let's say that on Friday, all of the gas prices are going to drop down to 99 cents a gallon. What are you going to do? You're not going to go out and buy gas right now. You're going to wait until Friday until prices have gone down. And so right now, at this moment, you're not going to go out and buy gas. The demand is going to go down and it's going to shift to the left. You're going to wait until Friday that those prices have gone down. The other thing is when you expect new technology. I talked about when I was in college, and it was the first year that Apple was coming out with their iPod Shuffle. And so before then, we would have to carry around a portable CD player. And if you were running to class, you're skipping and scratching your whole CD because you had it in your backpack or in your bag or whatever. And when Apple issued or released the new MP3 player, or like they released the release date for this new MP3 player, nobody was in the market for CD players anymore. The demand for CD players went down because they were expecting that new technology to come out. It's kind of the same when you think about when the new iPhones come out. I think you all said that we were on iPhone 11. So nobody is going to go out and buy an iPhone 8 or 9 or 10. They're going to wait for that new iPhone to come out, and then they're going to purchase it later. So for right now, when prices go down and new technology is expected, then demand will go down and it'll shift to the left. Okay, last two things are related goods. There are two types of related goods. There are complements, things that go together, like peanut butter and jelly, hot hamburger and hamburger buns, hot dogs and hot dog buns, coffee and creamer. The list can go on and on. And so whatever you think about, like coffee and donuts, things like that, those are complements, things that go together. If you buy one thing, you're more than likely going to buy the other. So in this case, then, the price of the peanut butter or the complement has gone down. And so in any case, if peanut butter is now all of a sudden cheaper to buy, more people are going to buy that. This is going to cause a movement down the line. It's going to cause a change in quantity demanded for in the market for peanut butter. But what this is asking is, how does it affect the demand for jelly? Because these two goods go together. So if the price of peanut butter goes down, then that means that more people are going to buy peanut butter. And if they have more peanut butter, they're going to need more jelly. So the demand for jelly is going to go up, and it's going to shift to the right. If the price of peanut butter goes up, peanut butter is now more expensive. Less people will buy peanut butter, therefore they won't demand as much jelly. So the demand for jelly will go down and it'll shift to the left. Okay, substitutes are things that you sub for one another. I know that because of the shortage of a lot of canned goods and consumer goods at our grocery stores, that families are having to sub one thing for another. For example, my HEB curbside pickup subbed my Crystal hot sauce for Louisiana hot sauce, and even though they're both from Louisiana, I cannot live without my Cristal. I call it Cristal, yes, I know. In any case, then, that was a substitute that I had to deal with recently. So usually the substitution effect does not have to deal with a shortage. It has to deal with the price of the substitute. And so let's say, for example, that our substitutes are Coke and Pepsi. I know some of you are saying I would never sub Coke for Pepsi or vice versa. Let's just say that you do. If the price of the goods substitute, Coca-Cola, the price of Coca-Cola goes up, less people are going to buy Coke, they're going to demand more Pepsi. If the price of Coke doubles, triples, quadruples, then I'm not going to buy Coca-Cola, I'm going to go out and buy something else. So the demand for Pepsi would go up and it would shift to the right. If the price of a goods substitute for Coca-Cola, let's say example, goes down, if Coke is cheaper, then I'm going to go out and buy Coke. That means that I'm going to demand less Pepsi. So the demand for Pepsi would go down and it would shift to the left. Okay, I hope all of these non-price determinants that this sheet has helped you in my review of. And so again, if you have any questions, comment on Google Classroom where I posted this page, or you can send me like on Google Hangouts, or you can just email me a question and I will answer it. Okay, so then after that we went over this. This was one of your assignments that I had posted on Google Classroom. Again, this is just for your understanding, and it's not for you to have to turn in for demand. I'm only going to grade the 2 demand videos on Edpuzzle, Demand 1 and Demand 2, and then also the demand assignments on Khan Academy. So, which I will go over in a minute also, because there were questions earlier in our Zoom meeting about some of the answers there. Okay, so for this assignment, it's just to read the scenario and determine whether or not demand would increase or decrease. Again, remember, demand only shifts to the right or to the left when price stays the same. and Piper is changing. So again, I'm going to write here just on the top Piper. This is what's changing, and price stays the same. That is when there is a change in demand. If we're asking for a change in quantity demanded, then that is when price changes and it causes a movement along the line. In this case, demand, it's going to increase or decrease, cause a shift of the entire curve to the right or to the left. So what would happen to overall demand for tennis balls if the price of tennis rackets went down? Tennis rackets and tennis balls are complements. So if tennis rackets are now cheaper, then the demand for tennis balls is going to increase. So you would have to just write or know that there's an increase in the demand for tennis balls. Number 2, what happens to the overall demand for macaroni and cheese if the price were to go up 15 cents per box? If the price were to go up, this is price changing. That does not affect demand, because in a change in demand, price is the same. So here you would put NA. Or you could have put, like, this is a change in QD. And so this would cause a movement along the line, not a shift of the entire curve. The next one, you get a raise at work. That means that your income has gone down. Hold on. These non-price determinants were complements. And this non-price determinant is going to be income. So if your income has gone up, you got a raise at work, you're going to demand more movie tickets. So if you make more money, you're going to spend more money. You increase the demand for movie tickets. Okay, a new Burger King has opened up down the road. What would happen to the demand for McDonald's? Burger King and McDonald's are substitutes. So if all of a sudden a new venue opens up, right, even if one more consumer goes to Burger King to try it than McDonald's, then the demand for McDonald's is going to decrease. In this case, you can also claim like substitutions, but also the population. If you have one more consumer going over to the Burger King, well, then that's one less consumer demanding McDonald's. Okay, Congress passes a law that increases your income taxes by 5%. That means that you have to pay more taxes. And if you have to pay more taxes, that means that your income has gone down because you have to pay more in taxes. You don't have as much money to spend on goods and services. Cedar Point, also, this is more of a regional, just different. Cedar Point is like our Fiesta Texas, SeaWorld. It's an amusement park. So if your income has gone down, well, then you're going to decrease the amount of tickets that you buy for any amusement park. Okay. Beyonce is seen on the red carpet wearing a beautiful new Versace dress. What would happen to the overall demand for Versace? Beyonce is a celebrity, so celebrity would increase your preference or your taste. And if Beyonce, I mean, most people love her, but I guess it could work either way. If Beyonce was wearing something new, Meghan Markle was the example that I used earlier, then it's going to increase the demand for that clothing. And because, it's just a new fad, it's something popular, it's, something like everybody wants to be like Queen Bee. Okay. There is a sale at donuts at Tim Hortons. So sale of donuts. Donuts are now cheaper. What would happen to the overall demand for coffee? Coffee and donuts are complements. So if you are buying more donuts, you're going to need more coffee. So then there's an increase in the demand for coffee. You're shopping at Home Depot for a new grill, and the salesperson lets it slip that there will be a sale beginning next week. Again, this is an expectation because it's not happened yet. Expectation. And so what would happen to the demand for a grill? I'm going to wait until next week to go out and buy that grill. So for now, the demand is going to decrease. The Surgeon General has just come out with a warning that eating Skittles causes cancer. Again, this is kind of like a news report, and and this is going to affect your preference or your taste. Preference, I think I'm spelling that right. Anyway, or taste. And so, yeah. And so, obviously, nobody wants cancer, and so it will decrease the demand for Skittles. What would happen, lastly, to the overall demand for Sony PlayStation if the price went down by 10%? Price is changing. Price does not affect demand, so this is NA because it is a change in QD instead. So it does not affect demand. It doesn't cause a shift of the entire curve. It just causes a movement along the line. Okay, so hopefully that has helped you. Rewind it if you need extra explanation, rewind the video, or email me any questions. Okay, this is the second assignment that I had posted onto Google Classroom. If you read the instructions, you'll know that these are all headlines in which you're determining whether or not they're going to affect the demand shift. Is it going to cause a change in demand? Is it going to increase or decrease? Is it going to shift to the right or to the left? Or is it also the new curve going to be A or C, assuming that we are always starting at point B? If point B is always our point of origin, a shift to the right would be an increase. So if there's an increase in demand here, then the new curve would be C. And then if there's a decrease in demand, it's a shift to the left. So then our new curve would be A. That's what that's talking about. And this is the demand curve for beef consumption as of May. And that's important because of a change in expectations. So the first question is price of beef is going to rise in June. That means that prices are going to go up later. If prices are going to go up later, it does affect, because it's not the price of the goods that's changing, it's the expectation of the good. Remember again, Piper. And if one of these things is changing, expectations is changing in this one, then yes, it's going to affect demand. Sorry, that's a crooked Y. It's going to increase demand, because if we know that prices are going to go up later, well, I'm going to go out and buy some right now because it's going to be cheaper now. An increase will cause the curve to shift to the right, and if we're starting at point B, a shift to the right, the new curve would be C. Millions of immigrants swell the U.S. population. Our population has increased. Again, that's the P in Piper. So yes, it does affect the demand curve. It's going to increase because more people shopping is going to increase the demand for beef. It's going to shift to the right, and the new curve is C. If pork prices drop, pork and beef, what is the connection? They're substitutes. If you're not eating meat, well then, if you're not eating red meat, you might go out and buy chicken or pork or fish. And so pork is considered a substitute in this example. And so if pork prices go down, more people are going to buy pork. It is considered a shift in the demand curve because it is a related good. They are substitutes, so it is going to affect demand, and it is going to decrease the demand for beef because people are going to go out and buy pork instead. It's going to shift to the left. And if we are always starting at the origin B curve, then a shift to the left would be A. So then A is your new curve. If the Surgeon General warns that eating beef is hazardous to your health, again, this is something that's going to change your preference, right? So it is going to change demand. It's going to decrease because we don't want to die. And the curve will shift to the left, and the new curve would be A as well. Beef prices fall and consumers buy more. What is changing here? What's changing here is the price of beef. If the price of beef changes, remember, a change in demand is when price stays the same but something else changes, and price is the same. So if beef prices fall, well, that's not going to affect demand. That's going to affect quantity demanded, so it is not going to increase or decrease demand. It is not going to shift to the right or to the left, and it will stay on B because it's just going to be a movement along the line. First, number 6, real income for U.S. drops for the third month. If people are not earning as much money, they're not buying as much, so it does affect demand because income is one of the non-price determinants. And if our incomes have gone down for the third straight month, we're going to decrease the amount that we buy, so demand is going to decrease, shift to the left, and the new curve will be A. Number 7, charcoal shortage threatens Memorial Day cookouts. Usually people cook burgers, right, on the grill, and they need charcoal to do so. So charcoal and beef are substitutes, related goods, not substitutes, I'm so sorry, X that, scratch that out. They're complements, they go together. So if we're not finding charcoal, well, we're not going to be able to grill burgers, we don't need beef, right? So yes, it does affect demand because it is a related good. The demand for beef is going to decrease because we don't even have charcoal to grill it, and so it's going to shift to the left, and the curve is going to be, the new curve is going to be A. Okay, so then lastly, nationwide fad, the disco burger. A fad is a trend, something that is hip, something that's popular, that's trending, I guess that's your all's word. And so if it affects your preference, then yes, it does affect demand. It is going to increase our demand because if it's popular, well, we all got to go and get one. And it's going to shift to the right and the new curve will be seen. Okay? All right, so hopefully that has helped you. The last thing that I want to go over was somebody had brought up to my attention that they didn't understand the answers for the Khan Academy on the very last video that is labeled Lesson Summary, Demand and the Determinants. There was a question of why this was a change in quantity demanded and the second one was not. So you have to really look at what the market of what good you're looking for. And in this case, we're looking for in the market for this specific car, okay? So how does it affect the demand for this car, or does it affect the quantity demanded for this car, okay? So the very first one says that car dealerships slash prices by 10%. Again, just to give you a little bit of a review, in a change in quantity demanded, the price is changing. Price changes, it's a movement on the line. Movement on the line. If there's a change in demand, then this is where price is the same, and it's Piper that's changing. Piper that's changing, changes, okay? So, hopefully you can remember that because I'm going to move the sheet. Okay, right here. So if the car dealership slashes prices by 10%, that means that the price of their good, of their car is going down. So we're going to basically buy more. Let's say that that at this point on the line, this was the price. I don't know, we'll say like $50,000 that they're slashing them. We're purchasing, I don't know, 3 cars at that price. We'll say that this is the market demand curve, which means everybody in the market for that car, not just one person. I'm not going to buy 3 cars at $50,000. And if they slash them by 10%, then price has gone down. Then it's a movement along the line. Now I'm going to buy more at that price. So this very first one is it's going to affect quantity demanded, and the quantity demanded will increase, and it's a movement down the line. The second one, and I think this is where your question was, Ifran, was the price of gas increases. So gas and cars are complements, and also the price of gas is going to affect the amount of income that you have. So if the price of gas goes up, you're going to have to pay more for gas, your income is going to go down. You're not going to have as much disposable income. So it's not going to affect, it's not that the price of this car is changing. So it's not going to be a movement along the line. If the gas prices are going up, that essentially affects your income. It affects the amount of disposable income that you have to buy cars. So the demand for cars is going to shift to the left. So this is going to cause demand to go down and shift to the left. Sorry, right here. And again, this could be because gas and cars are complementary goods. If the price of gas goes up, well, I'm not going to buy as much gas, so I'm not going to need to buy a car. But the more relevant connection is that the price of gas affects your income, and the less disposable income, the less likely you're going to go out and buy a car. Okay, so I hope that that's the difference. You have to look specifically at the market in which they're asking you if demand is affected. This is for the demand for cars, not the demand for gasoline. If it had been in the market for gasoline, then the price changing would have been a movement along the line, not a change of the entire curve. So I hope that that has helped explain it. And then just to go over a little bit these last few, prices of public transportation goes down, well then more people, public transportation and cars are a substitute. So if I can ride the bus for a lot cheaper, I'm going to go and ride the bus instead. So the demand for cars would go down and shift to the left. The state lowers vehicle registration fees. Now I have more money in my pocket because my fees have gone down, and it's also cheaper to maintain a car, so the demand for that car will go up and shift to the right. Recession leads to falling household incomes. If our incomes are falling and we're not making as much, demand is going to go down and shift to the left because, you know, we buy less when we make less money. And lastly, consumers expect new car prices to rise next year. If they are expecting them to go up next year, they're going to go out and buy right now. So the demand curve will shift to will increase and shift to the right because consumers are going to want to buy before that price hike. So I hope that has helped you guys with all of with everything that you guys have been trying to learn online. I know that this is a little bit unprecedented. Never had to teach supply and demand this way, and it would be a lot easier if I could see you guys face to face. So, but in any case, we are just, you know, taking it one day at a time, doing what we can. Stay positive. Email me questions if you have anything. The supply video on Edpuzzle is due on Friday, but if you need extra time, then as long as you turn it in by Monday, I will post a video just like this, but reviewing the supply notes, the supply side, and then also the non-price determinants that affect supply. So I will see you next time. Have a great day. I'm sorry that this video was so long, and that's it. Goodbye.